So I keep coming back to this thing I put on Twitter a while ago, and it was one of those moments where I heard the heavens open up and angels singing, and realized that it was really crazy. I was sitting there with a book in hand and a web page open, and just this great frustration I had that there are certain things that you can do with web pages that you just can't do with books. And there was this moment where I thought, why is that? And so what I mean by this is that I believe that for many books in the universe, the content that's inside of books is going to live natively on the web and on the open web. And I'm going to try to address these two questions here, why I think this is going to happen and how I think it's going to happen. And then there's a third big question that comes up every time we talk about this, which has been alluded to all morning, and that's what the hell is the business model if all the content of books is on the web? And if I could exactly answer that question, I would be a very, very rich man very quickly. So I'm going to start with why I think this is going to happen, and I'm going to go back to a very important and basic philosophical question, which is, what is a book? And I think that in the days of pages and covers, we knew what books were. E-books pose some problems for some people, but I think anyone who thinks an e-book isn't a book, we can dismiss as a crank now. But if we're talking about books and the web merging or content of books living on the web, I think it's important to have a kind of format agnostic definition so we know how to think about this thing, because a book is not a blog, and it's not a Facebook page, and it's not YouTube, and if it's not, why not? So here's my slightly wordy effort to define what a book is, which it's a discrete collection of text and other media that's designed by an author or group of authors as an internally complete representation of an idea or set of ideas, emotion or set of emotions, and transmitted to readers in various forms. So there's two important ideas there, I think, that we should continue to keep as we look at how the book is going to evolve. The first thing is the boundedness. I think that the fact that a book is not infinite in the way that Wikipedia is, or continuous in the way that a blog is very important. And it's important for the second reason, which is the intention of the creators of the book. There's this pact, I think, that you have when you start reading a book, is that the author or editors who put this thing together have done their best to make a complete and coherent argument for something, and whether that's an emotional argument or a philosophical argument, that the book is the best effort of the author to give you something complete. And anyone who's put together a group of essays into a book, as Brian and I did recently, recognize there's a very big difference between just a collection of blog posts and something that we spend the time and care to put together as a book. So the next thing with that format agnostic definition of a book is to think about what the differences are between paper books and e-books and print books. And there's often this disagreement among some of my colleagues out here when I say things like an e-book is just a website, which means different things to different kinds of people. But I think the important thing about these different kinds of books is not the guts of the technology that's inside it. It's not about HTML and zip formats and print on paper. It's really about what we can and cannot do with these different formats. And that's really the critical point that, for all practical purposes, is the difference between web books, e-books, and print books. And the corollary to this, and really the underpinning under my idea that books and the internet, or that books are going to end up on the internet, is that there are so many useful things that a publisher, a reader, or an external service that's building things off of an API could do with books that are on the web that they just cannot do with print books and they cannot do with ebooks. And I just had an experience on my way here reading on Kindle for Android. Has anyone yelled at their ebook reader in the last year? So can someone just shout out why it was they were yelling at it? Anyone? Anyone? Turn on. So I'll tell you why I was yelling, because I wanted to do something that I could not do, and it seemed like such an obvious thing, which was copy and paste a piece of text, and I screamed. No, I didn't scream, but there was a silent scream of rage that reverted. I could feel the plane shaking as I held my stupid device that wouldn't allow me to do that. And I think this is a fundamental frustration that we have, whether we talk about DRM or moving your things from one device to another, the kinds of things we want to do with books. And there's this famous statement from Stewart Brand, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is information wants to be free. And this, of course, comes from a bigger quotation, which is more nuanced. And what he said was that on the one hand, information wants to be expensive because it's so valuable. On the other, information wants to be free because the cost of getting it out is getting lower and lower all the time. So you have these two things fighting against each other. And so what he was talking about when he was talking about information was the cost. So that's the freedom he's talking about. But as Brian O'Leary says of me, he calls me a content anarchist. And what I think, there's a philosophical meaning there. It's that information wants to be liberated. It wants to be spread. And you can do just a little experiment. The next time you hear a really important or interesting piece of information, just observe what that thing does in your head, and you're going to find that it spends an awful lot of time trying to get out of you in the form of an anecdote or a tweet or a blog post or an article or indeed a book. Joshua Gans has a variation on Stewart Brand's comment, which is that information wants to be shared, which is another way of saying what I've just said, that information wants to get out there. But I think there's something bigger and more fundamental that isn't just about sharing of information, it's that information wants to be used. And when I think about the internet versus ebooks and versus paper books, the fundamental thing that strikes me as shocking is how much more useful information can be if it's on the web compared to if it's in an ebook and if it's in paper. There are just all sorts of things we could do with that information that we can't do with ebooks and that we can't do with print books. That's my position. Oh yes, hello to the little people. So I want to talk a bit about how this is going to happen, and I'm going to start with an example. It's not quite a business model, but I think it gives a hint of the kinds of things that I'm talking about, and it's a very simple one. So I started this talk with this tweet that I put up on the internet a year ago, a year and a half, something like that. And there was a response to this tweet, which was from a guy named Damien Walter, and he said, I had said that books and the internet will merge. He replied, no, books are researched, written, edited, published, marketed, and hence paid for. The internet is ego noise and hence free. So Brian and I edited a book recently, which you guys can all get a free copy of downstairs, and as Brian says, there's nothing more depressing than not being able to give away books, so please take your copy. If you see it, the table still full near the end of the day, feel free to take a couple of copies. And I'm just going to do a quick digression, which is now a message from your sponsor. So this book, Book of Futurist Manifesto, which is manifested in paper downstairs, was built on Pressbooks, which is an online bookmaking tool that's built on top of WordPress. So we output EPUBs, we convert nicely to Kindle, and we output print-on-demand ready PDFs. For those of you who don't know Pressbooks, again, just a quick garden tour. So every book, there's an easy content editing tool. You can organize your book inside a familiar WordPress setup. We output to EPUB. Our EPUBs convert nicely into Kindle, and we also do print-ready PDFs. But critically, and I think the secret sauce and the thing that's most exciting to me about Pressbooks is that we also output a web version of every book, which can be public or private as you decide, but these web versions look nice on all kinds of different devices. So the sponsor's now finished talking about that little bit. So this book that we produced, my chapter was called Why the Book and the Internet Will Merge. And this is the web version of the chapter, which was published in part 2 of the book and put on the web and out as an ebook on February 15th. In this article, or this chapter of the book, I quoted Damien Walter, and I hunted down Damien Walter and found his website and URL. And I linked out to Damien Walter in this article. The very same day, February 15th, there was an article in the books blog at The Guardian called Are Books and the Internet About to Merge? So I thought that's really interesting, and I saw the link coming back to my chapter. Interestingly, if you notice here, it's written by Damien Walter, who, by the way, can I just say, you'll recall what he said in his tweet. He actually came around. We convinced him. He agrees with me in this article. Now, here's something else interesting. Now there's a link back from this article in the Guardian blog, which gets an awful lot of traffic, linking back to the web version of my chapter in our book. And just, I'm not sure if this is a side note or if this is critical or exactly what, but you can look at the scale of engagement with this article that he wrote, which was talking about an idea that we were discussing in our book. Here we have 200 shares on Facebook, 335 tweets, 33 G+s, no Pinterests yet, I don't think they existed yet, and 99 comments on this article. Further, we can see in our analytics on this web version of the book, the people coming from The Guardian to our web version of the book, engaging with our content where we live. And this goes out to Laura, some bonus data, because once you see this, you say, oh, that's interesting. That book has full analytics sitting behind it, so we can see what's happening to it over its lifetime. So just a bit of bonus data about the book. Here is the whole lifetime of the book. We had 32,000 visits, 18,000 unique visitors. You can see the 3 big spikes are where the different parts of the book came out. New visitors, how long they spent. Some other data here. I don't know, can anyone read this? Maybe not, but this is the referrals. Interestingly, Google Organic is direct is the first, Google Organic is the second, which is really kind of interesting. That means that people doing searches are coming and landing on our book page. Third is Twitter. A bunch of my websites. I promote the book, I guess, and a whole lot of traffic coming from Jane Friedman's blog, which is on the Ether, and that was an article that Porter Anderson wrote. Also interesting to start seeing who's reading what, how long are they spending time, how much time are they spending on each chapter. So you've got all sorts of data that you can start to think about that is completely absent from the world of ebooks, unless you're Amazon or Kobo, where they presumably have all this data sitting and is helping them be very good at selling books to the world. Okay, so this is an example that hints, I think, to what I'm talking about, and this suggests 5 things to me. One is that a web book can generate interest in ways that an ebook can't. The ideas can spread so much faster in a web book. It's infinitely easier to find because everything is indexed and Google can find it. So if you're thinking about, let's say, laying schema.org metadata behind your web book, all of a sudden books become so much more accessible to people looking for the kind of things that you're writing about. I can see who's reading my web book, or at least where they're coming from, how much time they're spending. I can start to think about optimizing the interactions of those readers to do different kinds of things that you could never do in an ebook and certainly can't do in a paper book. 3 minutes. All right, I have to speed up a bit. And this direct connection is the most important thing, I think. And that connection between readers and writers means that we can have all sorts of different business models. So I'm quickly going to run how I think this is all going to play out, how it's going to happen. First of all, creating an ebook is still considered to be hard by many people, but tools like Pressbooks, like Vook, like the Atavist, BookType are making creation of books trivial and free. These free tools are going to become more prevalent out there, and as they are, we're just going to see a huge avalanche of new books being created. We've got other kinds of writing activity happening. Think of Wattpad and Fictionaut and Figment, which are completely embedded in the web. And all of this means there's just going to be so much more book content out there. And more ebooks means each book is harder to find. It means there's an arms race then as a publisher for how we promote and discover these books. And finally, this means those who connect with these readers better will win. So I have something important to say, so I'm going to skip ahead. So I think what we're going to see is a flourishing of new kinds of business models built on top of new tools. And I think there's a problem here is the closed silos, the Amazons of the world, the iBooks, the Nooks, the Kobos. These are all closed silos which control how publishing works. And it's true also of Pressbooks right now, of Vook, of the Atavist. We have a certain approach to what publishing ought to look like, and it's closed. But I believe that in order to have new book publishing models that embrace the open web and the kinds of things that publishers and readers can do, we need new open tools that are native to the web, that are flexible enough for people to build new ideas on and experiment on. And that leads me to our big announcement, which is that we are going to open source Pressbooks because we've found that people want to do so many different kinds of things with the tool that we've built, and we want to make that easier. And I think that in the end, that will enable new kinds of business models that embrace the open web rather than seeing that as something else that's aside from books that live elsewhere. So we're not going to send the code out everywhere immediately. We're going to work with selected partners. So if you're interested on working or discussing the possibility of doing something with Pressbooks, please come talk to me. I would love to talk to you. Thank you.